So you've said you support an assault weapons ban and universal background checks, and we actually learned during the debate that you are a gun owner. But in cities like Philadelphia, handguns are responsible for most homicides and violent crime. The most recent FBI data shows handguns were involved in 59% of murders in our country. How will you address the issue of the use of handguns? Because a push for an assault weapons ban only addresses a significant but small part of the problem.
Reward is being offered for information in a shooting Friday night in North Philadelphia. Police are searching for 7 suspects seen in this surveillance video. All of them had guns. They fired at least 30 shots on Ingersoll Street, killing a woman and injuring 3 men. The suspects then fled in a dark-colored Chevy sedan and a dark-colored Buick SUV.
So, first of all, yes, I am a gun owner, and Tim Moss is a gun owner, and we're not trying to take anybody's guns away from them. But we do need an assault weapons ban. Assault weapons are designed to kill a lot of human beings quickly, and have no place. I'm going to get to it.
Yes.
And have no place on the streets of a civil society. We need universal background checks, which, to your point about handguns, is about saying that it is just reasonable to want reasonable gun safety laws that say we should do background checks, that we ought to know. It's just reasonable. You might want to know before someone can buy a lethal weapon, if they've been found by a court to be a danger to themselves or others. You might just want to know.
And respectfully, we do understand that.
But you're asking about...
I'm asking specifically about handguns, because many of those handguns aren't purchased in places.
Universal background checks apply to handguns.
Yes.
They do.
But in many instances, those handguns aren't even bought lawfully. Yes.
Which is why I also have been very adamant for years. In fact, I myself protested at a gun show probably 10, 15 years ago about the gun show loophole and why we need to close that. Because what ends up happening is that gun shows at flea markets, gun dealers are not, under existing law in the past, required to register their sales. And so you are exactly right that a lot of homicides, for example, a good number of them, I don't have the statistic in front of my mind, are committed with illegally purchased guns. And that's why we need to address each entry point in the issue, including universal background checks, closing the gun show loophole, and what we need to do as a general matter to focus not only on reaction to crime, but prevention of crime.
News, Alexis etched the words "better off this way" and "my ELF weapon" on the stock of the Remington 870 pump-action shotgun. Investigators want to know if "better off this way" was a signal Alexis expected to die during the massacre.
There were probably multiple triggers that caused him to decide, now's the time I'm going to take this course of action. Thinking about it, conceptualizing it, planning it in his head.
As for ELF, some investigators suspect it might refer to the tech phrase extremely low frequency. Alexis worked as a computer technician and recently ran into police about hearing voices and microwave machines bombarding his body. He told that bizarre story to Rhode Island police, who alerted Newport Naval Station authorities. But the Navy confirmed Wednesday the information was never passed up the chain of command.
So you're raising a very important issue that has many facets, including what we need to do in terms of reasonable gun safety laws and what we need to do around crime prevention, what we need to do around crime deterrence. But listen, I have personally prosecuted homicide cases. I have held the hands of mothers who have come to me crying, who have said, I only want to talk to Kamala, because they knew when they sat down, I would treat them with the dignity and respect that they were entitled and due about the loss of their child, often their son, to gun violence and the need to take it seriously. And we must take it seriously.
To prevent these things.
Chicago Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson says his investigators received no cooperation from Facebook during its 10-month investigation. Police say undercover officers infiltrated dozens of private invitation-only secret groups on Facebook that were selling drugs and firearms.
Many with serial numbers scratched out, some with magazines capable of holding more than 30 rounds of ammunition, and most fully loaded and ready to use at the time of purchase.
In every way, understanding it's not just about a soundbite. It's about a comprehensive approach that deals with the tragedy of, to your point, everyday gun violence in America. It's real. It has had a profound impact in terms of trauma that for the most part has gone undiagnosed and untreated. The trauma that exists in communities around the violence of losing their children, losing a brother, losing a father, an uncle. All of that must be addressed, and we have to have a holistic response to it.
Are there things we haven't thought about yet? Because every time we bring up this issue of gun violence, universal background checks comes up and a ban on assault weapons. Are there other solutions that you're also thinking about that will get at this issue?
Absolutely. For example, part of what we did as vice president with the president, we were able to pass the first meaningful gun safety legislation in 30 years. And part of what that involved was millions and millions of dollars to put more mental health counselors in public schools, right? Because we know that there is an aspect of this that is about treating the trauma and dealing with it at its source before it ends up manifesting itself in a problem.
One of the major cartels is able to procure its weapons. Essentially, these are like hubs.
So you think of terrorist cells, these are like individual cells.
Okay. In a matter of months, Project Thor discovered dozens of cartel gun-running networks. This is just one example of how the CJ&G cartel had been trafficking firearms. Law enforcement had missed them for years.
The cartels have their fingers across the country, and they're able to pull firearms from all over the country, and they do.
Here's how it works. When narcos want guns, they activate a phone tree, calling accomplices who live across the U.S.
There is the work that we need to do that is about putting resources into communities around violence prevention. I've been a big advocate of that for years, which includes what we need to do around putting resources into community-based intervention that is not just requiring on the good people in the community to volunteer to do the intervention, but actually paying people to do it because it's a full-time job. It's about understanding what we need to do to, again, understand that, to your point, we have to have a holistic response to this issue and prioritize it instead of reacting to the tragedy that sadly they are too predictable. Let's all agree, enough of that. There are very few solutions that we haven't thought of. We need to put the resources into them.
Madam Vice President, we want to move to the topic of reproductive health.
Have more police interacting with people, having them on the streets. We can prevent crimes. We can prevent petty crimes from turning into something worse. But we also have to have an organized effort against gangs. Just as in a previous generation, we had an organized effort against the mob. We need to take these people on. They are often connected to big drug cartels. They are not just gangs of kids anymore. They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel. And the president has asked the FBI to launch a very concerted effort against gangs everywhere.